I mean, I've always thought of nonconformity as kind of a virtuous cycle, right? Because broadly that cycle is those who don't know us expect us to conform, right? When they see nonconformity, they assign it status because they assume it requires some knowledge, power, wealth, whatever it is, to be able to have a nonconformist stance. But then that external status that we get assigned, it's typically greater than the status that I myself might assign myself based on knowing me, right? But it's that mismatch, right, between the external perception and the internal perception that leads the individual into actually developing more confidence. So now I've got more confidence, and that added confidence in turn fuels my desire and my willingness to be nonconformist.
I agree that it's a virtual cycle, and the different parts that you talk about are nicely reinforcing one another. So very, very true. And what is interesting is that sometimes we have the wrong perceptions about the power of being a nonconformist. So we might think that by behaving in ways that are not conforming to expectations, we're going to obtain all sorts of negative evaluations, and instead it's just the opposite. I tried it out in my own work. There was a class that I taught at the executive level one time, and it was two classes actually back to back to the same group of people, but divided into class because there were too many. And I went in teaching some materials, and the only thing that I changed in between the two classes were my pair of shoes. So I was wearing a nice suit, and I went from a pair of very formal leather shoes to a pair of red sneakers. And then I asked people in both classes to answer questions about what they thought of my status and on my influence. And what is interesting is that on things like my consulting rate or my influence within HBS, people thought of me as having a higher status when I was teaching in a suit and red sneakers rather than the formal pair of shoes. So you're right. We gain more status in the eyes of others when we are behaving in non-conforming ways, but that also gives us confidence. I certainly felt more confident when I was teaching in my sneakers than in my shoes. And then fascinated by that experience, I actually backed it up with research. And it seems that it's through experience that we're more confident and less anxious when we're behaving in non-conforming ways.
Right. But by the way, I'm sure you realize that was a complete setup, right? Because I just had you say that we can learn to be more nonconformist, which is, again, kind of what I'm angling for here, that the founders, whoever might be listening, can actually improve these qualities within themselves. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, you don't have to be born a rebel, but it's all a matter of doing a few things differently, like wearing red sneakers in formal settings, but also committing to rebelliousness more broadly, really committing to the idea that it's okay of exploring ways of being in the world that might at first feel wrong or possibly even destructive, that it is okay, and becoming comfortable with that idea. But yes, I am not a rebel. I am certainly trying to learn about how to be an effective one. And the experience of trying little things out actually inspired me to create guidelines on how to live like a rebel for a week. So there is a document on the book website that people can check out, which is about 7 days of rule breaking.
Nice.
And yeah, if you're like me after trying the rebel life, you won't want to go back.